Hi, third graders. Welcome to Ready, Set, Read, Research and Write. I'm Ms. Gunter and I'm so glad you're here today. On today's episode, we're going to do our first read of our new text, Magnetism Magnets, Types and Uses from ReadWorks. Then we're going to answer some text-dependent questions. I cannot wait for our learning today. Before we get started, let's make sure that you have your materials. For this episode, you will need your Week 5 of Distance Learning work packet, a pencil, and some scratch paper. You don't have your materials yet? That's okay. You will have 30 seconds to get your materials. Hurry back, we have so much learning to do. We're ready. We're ready. We're ready to learn. Guys, I'm so excited. Today we get to do our first read of our new text, Magnetism Magnets, Types and Uses. And I love close reading. Close reading allows us to read a text multiple times, get a deeper understanding. I know that you've done close reading with your teacher at your school. What are some things that your teacher had you do during your first read to help you get a deeper understanding of the text? Your teacher sounds amazing to have you do all of those things because they're all very important. The first read allows us to get a general idea of what the text is all about. We can do things like find the main idea and key details. We can summarize. We can notice the text organization. It's so many things that we could do on a first read. It's just so exciting. Well, there are so many different things we can do during our first read of a close read. There are 3 important jobs of a reader when they're doing their first read. First, read with a purpose. Make sure you annotate the text and that you read the text all the way through. When we read with a purpose, we're really thinking about why are we reading. It can be just to enjoy the text. It can be to answer a specific question or to find out some specific information. When we annotate, we read with our pencils. We do this by underlining major points, circling any keywords or phrases that are confusing or unknown, using question marks to show questions that we have while reading, and stopping and jotting our thoughts and clarifying statements in the margin. What are 3 important things readers do during the first read of their close read? You're right. During the first read, readers read with a purpose, they annotate, and they read all the way through. During today's first read, our purpose for reading is to answer the question, what are the variety of ways that we use magnets? We are going to annotate by circling unknown words or confusing words. And we're going to underline details that help answer the question we set in our purpose. And then we're going to read all the way through. We're going to make sure we read all the paragraphs. Let's get started. Our first paragraph says, magnets come in a wide variety with an equally wide variety of uses. I recognize that word variety from our vocabulary words on day 1, so I'm going to circle it. Let's keep reading. The most common are bars or discs. Because they stick to certain metals, these magnets are used to fasten and latch things, like a cabinet door. Readers, this detail tells me one way we use magnets. I'm going to underline it because that matches our purpose for reading. Let's keep reading. Huge horseshoe magnets have a U shape. They are used to move iron and steel scrap. Tiny magnets on audio tape and videotape store sound and images. You have 30 seconds to underline the details in the first paragraph that tells us other ways we use magnets. Let's check. What details did you underline? I think we have the same details. Here's mine. I added to my annotation by underlining, they are used to move iron and steel scrap and store sound and images. Wow, magnets have a lot of uses. Let's keep reading. Our second paragraph says, magnets are everywhere. They help to make life more convenient. Convenient is one of our new vocabulary words, so let's circle it. They also help us to get around more quickly. For example, many electrical motors require electromagnets to run. The magnetic force that runs the motors is created when an electrical current flows through a coil of wire. Motors with electromagnets help run many household appliances. The same electromagnetic force is also used in the motors of cars, trains, and airplanes. Let's stop and jot. Based on this paragraph, what are some ways that we use magnets? Remember to underline the details that support your answer. You worked so hard. What did you jot and underline? I think your annotations look similar to mine. Let's see. My stop and jot says, electromagnets are needed in electrical motors. We use electrical motors for travel and in our everyday household appliances. The details that support my response are, many electrical motors require electromagnets to run. And electromagnets help run many household appliances. Now it's time for you to practice by yourself. I know you can do it. You will have 3 minutes to read the next 2 paragraphs by yourself. As you read, remember to annotate and to think about our purpose for reading. You worked really hard for 3 minutes to read the last 2 paragraphs and annotate the text. Let's give yourself some praise. Now that we've read and annotated the text, we can use our annotations to help us answer text-dependent questions. Text-dependent questions are questions that require you to go back into the text to answer. Text-dependent questions can be thick or thin. Let's discuss what that means. Thin text-dependent questions are questions where the answer is directly stated in the text. They ask about a specific word, definition, or content. For example, who is the main character in the story? What is the topic of the story? The answers to these questions can be found directly in the text. Thick text-dependent question requires a reader to use their own background knowledge and details from the text. Thick text-dependent questions take a little more thinking. For example, why do you think the 3 bears did not lock their doors? Or, why is this topic important? And, how would the world be different if we didn't have magnets? To answer these questions, you have to think a little harder, but you can do it. To answer text-dependent questions, we have to first think whether this question is a thick question or a thin question. Then we use our annotations and our notes to look to see where in the text can we find more details that will answer the question. We go back and reread and develop our answer, And then finally, we underline the detail that best supports our answer. Thin question. I think this question is a thin question because I remember reading the details explicitly in the text that answers this question. Then I'm going to use my annotations to find out where in the text there are more details that can help answer this question. I remember we stopped and jotted about electromagnets in paragraph 2. Let me go back to paragraph 2 and reread what it said. Paragraph 2 says, magnets are everywhere. They help to make life more convenient. They also help us to get around more quickly. For example, many electrical motors require electromagnets to run. The magnetic force that runs the motors is created when an electrical current flows through a coil of wire. Motors with electromagnets help run many household appliances. The same electromagnetic force is also used in the motors of cars, trains, and airplanes. But I see right here that this detail says that the magnetic force that runs the motors is created when electrical current flows through a coil of wire. So that detail answers the question. Did you see how I answered that text-dependent question? First, I thought about whether the question was a thick question or a thin question. Then, I used my annotation to see where in the text I can go to answer the question. In this case, it was paragraph 2. Then I reread the paragraph and I looked for the details that answer the question. And then once I found it, I came up with my answer and then underlined the detail as support for my answer. Scholars, on page 6 of your distance learning packet, there are more text-dependent questions for you to answer. Let's try one together. The first one says, reread paragraph 2. What are the specific ways magnets are used in people's day-to-day lives? Scholars, take 1 minute to answer this text-dependent question. Remember to think about whether the question is a thin question or a thick question. Use your annotations from earlier. Reread paragraph 2 and then develop your answer and underline the details that supports your answer. What was your answer to that text-dependent question? Great job. Let's check your response with mine. I wrote, magnets are used in people's day-to-day lives. Magnets create an electromagnetic force that help run many electrical motors. These motors are in household appliances, cars, trains, and airplanes. Anytime a person travels in their car or on a train or even drink coffee, there's a chance they are using magnets. Because you worked so hard today. We finished our first read of our text, Magnetism Magnets, Types and Uses, by reading all the way through, annotating the text, and reading with a purpose. Then we also learned how to answer text-dependent questions. We did so much today. Kiss your brain. Wait to see you on our next episode. Until then, I wish you and your family well. Bye.